Hello students, I am here at the Victor Valley Museum today. Come along with me to learn new things. So here in the museum it talks a lot about fossils that have been found nearby the high desert, like Victorville and Hesperia and Apple Valley. These are some fossils that were found in the Las Vegas Valley, which is not too far from here. Look at those fossils. Here's like a jawbone. Here's from a Columbian mammoth. And look at this one. This is a Columbian mammoth tusk. Pretty cool stuff. Here's some of the locations where they found some of these fossils. And the reason why fossils are so important is so that we understand what was here before we were here and had a written history. So we can use these fossils to see the different animals and plants that are now extinct and learn from that. Here's some art showing how it might have looked at different locations where they found fossils and the different types of animals and what type of situation they might have lived in during that time period. This one's pretty cool with the mammoths there. Something else that's also interesting is that there used to be a lot more ice and the weather used to be much more cold. The climate was colder. So that's why there was an ice age at one point. Now, of course, a lot of the ice has melted and continues to melt to this day. Now I'm gonna go through this cave and see what's inside. Of course, our area that we live in the desert had a lot of Native Americans living here, and some still live here today. Here are some of the tools that they used up here in this area in the high desert in California. They would use this handstone to grind different things to make food and different stuff like that, to make breads too. Here's some pestles that they'd use to grind things as well. And here's some other examples of things that they got from nature that they would use for different reasons. Did you know that there's a lot of art in rocks? And this is from the native people who lived in that area. It says that rock art is human-made artwork on natural surfaces like caves, walls, and rock outcrops. There are different types of rock art, including drawings called pictographs and carvings called petroglyphs. Rock art is the oldest evidence of a human presence. So there's many different ideas on what rock art is. Wayfinding, timekeeping, social boards to communicate with people, or record keeping like a history book almost. Pictographs and petroglyphs existing across ancestral land are sacred to the Yuhaviatam of San Manuel Nation. Oftentimes the images speak of creation, and therefore the people feel deep connections to the spaces where the rock art is found. For visitors, it is important to remember that rock art is extremely important in natural and cultural landscapes, and that its preservation is imperative for affiliated groups. So here are some pictures of rock art that you can find in the desert sometimes. In the desert, there's lots of mysteries to be uncovered, so let's start with this one. What is a habitat mosaic? Mr. Lacuna, let's see. Open it up.
Brainstorm.
A habitat mosaic is an area made of many types of habitats like woodlands and dunes. Our mosaic has 30 distinct habitats in the high desert. Let's see this one. Our high desert is located in what desert? What desert are we in?
Can you guess?
Let's see. The Mojave Desert. Is the high desert a barren landscape? Let's see. What do you think? No, it's an ecologically and geologically diverse environment, the apparent barren landscape is actually bursting with flourishing life. And Mrs. Lacuna's mom, let's see this one. Do deserts have any water?
I don't know.
What do you guys think? You drink water every day. Yes, many deserts like the Mojave have essential water sources like springs and seeps. Thank you to my assistants. Here's some examples of some of the animals that you can find in the high desert. Now, oftentimes we don't see these as much because there's so many humans here where we live, but they range from bighorn sheep to bobcats, which look cute but don't pet one, and coyotes that look a lot like dogs, but those are also dangerous. Bighorn lizards here and snakes, and we can eat them sometimes. Have little bats, but never touch a bat because oftentimes they have diseases that can make you really sick, even though they're cute. Cute. Here's a roadrunner skull, which is a type of bird that looks like this, and they're called roadrunners because they run on the road. Here are some bird talons, too, that some of the birds have. And an example of raptors, great horned owls, golden eagle, bald eagle, red-tailed hawk, raven, and peregrine falcon, barn owl, and harpy eagle. Here's an example of mountain lion fur, bobcat tracks, which we just saw a bobcat a minute ago, and coyote scat, which is another name for what? Gross. Here's a cool display of different desert animals and plants. There's a desert tortoise, a desert tarantula, I don't know if you saw that at first, and a burrowing owl. What's cool about this museum is you can touch a lot of stuff. So they have a bighorn sheep horn here that you can touch, coyote skull and leg bones, and even rattlesnake skin. Look at that. What's really cool is at museums you can often see art too. This one is called Going to Church. There's also this beautiful art piece called Two Women. Did you know that there's a lot of military bases in the high desert? There's the George Air Force Base, that one is in Victorville. There's the Marine Corps Logistics Base in Barstow. And then there's Fort Irwin, which is in the Calico Mountains, not too far from the high desert as well. Very interesting. So I'm going to show you what's called a Kellogg switchboard that was first installed at the George Air Force Base up here in the high desert in 1953. And the way that they would use this is those cords and the little plugs that they'd plug in. The person who was running it, which usually they had a lot of women running it, but at the Air Force Base they might have had more men. But they would be the operator, and so they'd take that phone right here and listen to it and ask the person who they wanted to talk to and transfer the call by putting the different plugs into the different parts there to transfer the call to somebody else. Pretty amazing how far technology has come since that day. Also, at a lot of these bases that have been running for a long time, they used to put all their stuff inside what these trunks were called foot lockers, and all their important things would go in there. And then here's an example of one of the uniforms that they would have worn depending on what part of the military they were in. So that's what life on the military base would have been like during the 1950s. This display case shows that even on military bases you can find some amazing information and some amazing things through archaeology. Those are obsidian arrowheads. And there's some turquoise, which is often used in Native American jewelry. And some stones that were worked, so they might have been used for something. Pretty interesting. an old glass, a can, which looks very old, some old nails, another one of those rocks that Native Americans would use to grind down different plants and things. Very interesting. Here's an example of a Purple Heart Award. This one was awarded to Army Lieutenant Manuel Rodriguez of Oro Grande. He was killed in action in 1942. Now, of course, the ones that they give out now are new and shiny, but this one is very old. But these are often given out to military members who have protected their country and who have given their life or who have survived, helping to save other people and doing their duties. So something really amazing to see in person. In the high desert, mining was very common because of all the heat and all the rocks. You can find some pretty cool ones up here. Here's colemanite, gypsum, ulexite, some more colemanite, halite, tinaculite, and kernite. So Death Valley and the desert has a lot of great minerals and lots of great rocks. If you're wondering what minerals are, they're naturally occurring inorganic, that means that they're not alive, solids with a definite chemical composition and crystalline structure, so they have crystals. So let's check out some over here with Mr. Lacuna. He's going to use this microscope to show us some awesome minerals and rocks. Look at that. Almost looks like carrot slices to me or something. Let's look at the next one. Ooh, that one's pretty cool. Looks like it has hot Cheeto dust on it. Let's see the next one. Ooh.
These are all forms of wolfenite.
That's interesting.
Do you see how it's clustered? Like it said in the... It makes crystals. Cool. This one is wolfenite with mematite, which is the blue. Mematite is blue.
The bluish green color. That's cool. And all these crystals and all these different forms and shapes are caused by the pressure of the earth. And it says here on the sign, a mineral's crystal structure is its unique internal arrangements of atoms, which is what everything is made out of, little atoms. This arrangement is what determines the different physical properties of minerals, which helps us identify them. For instance, a tighter packed atomic arrangement makes a mineral hard like a diamond, and a looser arrangement causes them to be soft and brittle like the graphite used in your pencil lead. So that's pretty cool. Different structures. And here's what they look like in the smallest form right here. That's the atom shape of these crystals that make up these minerals and rocks. Pretty amazing. Here's some more examples. There's the wolfenite right there. Cubite, which makes sense because it's like a cube shape. Quartz. Orthorhombic. Sulfur, which smells if it's burning. Very cool stuff. So some rocks have fluorescence, which means that there's a rainbow of colors beyond what we can see. So you can use UV light to excite the electrons inside and make them kind of glow. So Mr. Lacuna is going to press this button to turn on the UV light. So they kind of glow. with all the different kind of colors. It's really cool. I like this one especially right there, that purple glowing one.
I like this one right here.
Oh yeah. Pretty cool. UV lights can bring out different colors than what we normally see. I thought that this display was very beautiful. It says that although not always used to identify minerals, color is important because it serves as the first visual indicator. So the first thing that we can use our eyes to identify it with is the color for the mineral type. Many minerals actually come in a rainbow of colors, so even though one type of mineral has a certain color, it might come in many other different colors too. So it's just really cool getting a look at these up close. This one has a really cool color. I like that one. This one has some pretty crystals on it. Look at that. When I move back and forth, you can see them shine. Here is a petrified tree trunk that's probably hundreds of years old. This happens when a tree trunk falls and all the living components of the tree trunk become minerals. So the minerals replace the tree trunk and it makes it hard as a rock. It doesn't feel like wood anymore, it feels more like a rock, which is pretty cool. There's even forests filled with petrified trees that you can visit in California. Like I said, the high desert was a mining place. Lots of people wanted to mine here back in the old days. So they would mine for different minerals and things. And of course the gold rush started a lot of that in 1849. Here's some cool old cameras from 1930s. Can you imagine cameras used to look like that? Of course they didn't really have cell phones back then. They'd use the telegraph as well as eventually a rotary sort of style phone. Two famous actors in Hollywood actually lived up here in the high desert at one point. They lived in Apple Valley, and these two famous actors were Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. They were known in the 1950s and 40s, as well as in the 60s, making lots of Western style movies, which were very popular at the time. Here is some clothing that they would wear in their movies. And here's an old playset that kids would play with to imagine that they're Roy Rogers. And often his movies involved riding horses, wearing Western clothing, and he was always the good guy with Dale Evans saving the day. Pretty cool.